All right, welcome back. This video is going to explain how you would find the x-intercepts from general form by factoring. Remember, we said that x-intercepts are the same thing as roots, zeros, and solutions, and on a graph, they are the points where the parabola crosses the x-axis. Today, we're going to figure out how to find those x-intercepts by looking at a general form equation. Remember from the last video, we said to find the y-intercept, we would set x equal to 0 and simplify, and we practiced this all last week. To find the x-intercepts, we decided that we are going to set y equal to 0 and then simplify. And remember, y is the same as f of x. In the last video, we showed how to find the x-intercepts from factored form, from vertex form, and now today is going to be from general form. So, the one we're going to do is this one. I lied. This is a review of the one we did before, or a slightly different one. Remember, if it's in factored form, we set x equal to, or f of x equal to 0, and then we separate into two equations, and we solve each equation separately until we get an answer. And then once we got our answer, we can check on Desmos to make sure that they are correct, because we'll see those actual points. Now, as we look at an equation that's in general form, what we're going to do is we are going to put this in factored form, and then we're going to use the same method that we did before. But we have to figure out how to take out an equation that's in general form and write it in factored form. Remember, last quarter we created this factor pairs sheet to help us do some factoring pretty quickly. That's going to be really helpful for this task today. So, first thing we're going to do is we are going to set f of x equal to 0 like we always do when we find x-intercepts. And now we are going to turn this into factored form. And you'll remember the way that we factor a trinomial is we use the box, but we go backwards. We know that the x squared goes up here. We know that the negative 12 was down here, and that these two boxes added up to 4x. So now we're going to work backwards to figure out what would be the factors of this equation. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to think about numbers that multiply together to give us negative 12, but also add up to positive 4. So we're going to use that factor pair sheet, and we're going to look at our factors of 12. Now, since it's negative, that means one of the numbers has to be negative. So if we think about all the different possibilities, we have them here. Now, remember, we want the two factors that also add up to 4. So the only two factors that do that are negative 2 and positive 6. So we're going to put those in these boxes here. Negative 2x and positive 6x. If we add those together, we get positive 4x. And now we can work backwards to figure out the factors. On the outside, something times something is x squared. It has to be x times x. And then x times something is 6x. This number has to be a positive 6. X times something is negative 2x. It has to be a negative 2. And then we can check, is negative 2 times positive 6 negative 12? Yes, it is. So that means that these are our two factors, and now we can write these as an equation in factored form. So I took our trinomial, I factored it so that I could write it as two factors here. And now we can use the same method as before, and we can separate this into two separate equations. We can say 0 is equal to x minus 2, and we can also say 0 is equal to x plus 6. And then we go through and solve just like we did. Plus 2, and then we write our final point, just like we did in the last video. If you're not sure how to do this part as much, you should go back and rewatch that first video for this practice assignment. Now this one, we're going to subtract 6 from both sides, and then write our final point. So just to recap, what we did is we took an equation that was in general form, we set it equal to 0, we wanted to write it in factored form, and the way we did that was by using the box method backwards to find the factors, and then we separated it into two separate equations because of the zero product property, and then we were able to solve each equation separately. You can take a screenshot of this or write this down if that's helpful for you. We're going to do one more example that's a little bit more complicated. All right, so what if we have a trinomial or a quadratic function that's a little bit more complicated or has a number out front? You're probably wondering, how did we factor that? So I just want you to remember from quarter 3 when we were working on this, we talked about how to factor a little bit more complicated trinomials using the diamond method. So let's talk about this one real quick, and then we'll do one more example. To factor this, we do know that the 2x squared was probably here. We know that the positive 5 was here. We know that the middle had to add up to 11x. But the part where it was a little bit more complicated is, how do we figure out the number we multiply by? And the way we did that is we took the 2 from the front, or the leading coefficient, or now we know it as the scale factor. And then we know the 5, we multiplied those two things together to get 10. And then to figure out what goes in these boxes, we took factors of 10 that also add up to 11. So if we look at our factors of 10, we know that it's 2 and 5, or it could also be 1 and 10. The two numbers that add up to 11 are 10 and 1, so we're going to put a 10 here and a 1 here. And what that means is we're going to put the 10 and the 1 in these two boxes. And it doesn't matter which ones you pick. I'm just going to put the 10x here and then the 1x here. And these both add up to 11x, so that looks good. And now we're going to work backwards. So since this is 2x squared, either one of these has to be 2x and the other one has to be x. So we have to think about which one makes more sense. I'm going to put the 2x up here, because when I multiply this out, that's going to give me 10x, and that's a little bit easier than putting the 2x here and getting an answer of 1x. So we put x here, 2x up here, and then we work backwards. 2x times some number gives us 10x. That has to be 5. 2x times 5 is 10x. And then up here, x times some number has to be 1x, and in this case, it's going to be a 1. And we could check, is 5 times 1 5? Yes, so that works, and now we have these two factors. We're going to use that same method to try to factor our other trinomials that are a little more complicated. Just to kind of label these, remember we call these A, B, and C. A is that scale factor, that leading coefficient, and the way we found that top number was by multiplying those two numbers together. So take a screenshot of this if you don't remember it. All right, in the week 4 practice, you'll notice on the back of the page, or the second page, the first couple problems you can do based on the example we did first, and then that last example should help you with the last 4. If you get stuck on these or you're not sure what to do, please let your teachers know and come to a Google Meet. We will help you with those. Be careful on this last one right here. This one looks a little bit different, but don't be scared. What's happening here is they've already kind of set it equal to 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to get 0 on one side of the equation by adding 3x squared to both sides. When we do that, these disappear, and then this ends up on this side. So we get 0 is equal to 3x squared plus 2x minus 2. And now we can solve this equation just like we did. We're going to factor this, separate this into two different equations, and then finish solving it. All right, you can stop the video here if you feel like you're good. If not, and you want to see one more example from the practice assignment, this is towards the end of the second page. You'll see this equation. We're going to do this one together. But again, if you feel like you're good, you can end here. So for this one, you'll notice first thing we're going to do is we're going to set f of x equal to 0. And then we have to factor this trinomial. And the way we're going to factor it is by using the area model box backwards. So remember, 12x squared goes up here, negative 3 goes down here, and then these two boxes need to add up to positive 16x. We are going to use the diamond method to figure out the factors. So first I'm going to take 12 and multiply it by negative 3. That's my A and C. And that's going to give me negative 36. And I also know that these have to add up to positive 16. So we need factors of negative 36 that add up to 16. Since this is negative 36, we know that one of the factors has to be negative, because a negative and a positive gives us a negative. So if we list out all the possible factors, we see those. The only two factors that also add up to positive 16 are negative 2 and positive 18. So we're going to write those in these boxes here. And it doesn't matter which way you go. And now this is where it gets kind of a little tricky. We have to work backwards to think about what numbers can be on the outside. So we can't just put x and x here because we got 12x squared. So it either has to be like 1x and 12x, or it has to be 2x and 6x, and a lot of this is going to be you kind of guessing and checking to figure it out. But when I see these numbers, I feel like 6 is a factor of both 12 and 18, so I'm going to try 6x here, and I'm going to put 2x up here. And I know 6 times 2 is 12, so that would work. And then if I keep working backwards of guessing and checking, right, 6x times something is 18x, that has to be 3. 2x times something is negative 2x, so that has to be negative 1. And if we check, these two numbers should multiply together to give us this number. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3, so yes, that works. I know that was a lot of work, but now we have our two factors, and we can write our trinomial in factored form. We get these two factors. We follow the same thing that we did before. Because of the zero product property, we can separate these into two separate equations. So 0 is equal to 2x plus 3, and then 0 is equal to 6x minus 1, and we solve them separately. On this side, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, and then I'm going to divide by 2 because that's the opposite of multiplying 2 by x. Negative 3 divided by 2, put that in my calculator, that gives me negative 1.5. And then I write it as a point. And then on this one, we do the same thing. Plus 1, plus 1. We have 6 times x, so I'm going to divide by 6. 1 divided by 6 in the calculator gives me 0.167. And I write my points, and we can check this on Desmos. So what we did is we, this week, talked about how to find the x-intercepts from factored form, vertex form, and from general form. We've only talked about one method so far, which is factoring. Next week, we're going to talk about how to use the quadratic formula to find those as well. All right, please reach out if you have any questions. Have a good day.